morning, ladies and gentlemen. Yesterday, I was Dr. Joseph Gimba. Today, I'm not Dr. Joseph Gimba again because I'm standing in for somebody. And I want to wear the cap of that gentleman that ordinarily should have been here. But because of one reason or the other, Dr. Chris of the National Institute of Legis cannot be here with us today. But I am going to make presentation on his behalf. Responsibility this morning. I'm saddled with the responsibility this morning to talk about or to discuss with you on first institutional capacity development for resilience and accountable parliament. I make a presentation yesterday. I'm going to apply other, and I want to be primary in my approach, but I'm not going to bore you into going into what is resilience or what is accountability. These are concepts that we are all aware of, and we understood what they are. So going into try to explain what is accountable parliament. I am with the view that is robust. A parliament that is open, a parliament that is responsive, a parliament that can regenerate, invent, timely, a parliament that can solve problems timely, a parliament that is focused and can foresee, co-create with the executive and other stakeholders, is said to be an accountable parliament. And such parliament can ensure democracy is promoted, maintained, and have a culture of internal mechanisms to change and adopt in all circumstances for the better. But again, what is institutional capacity development? The process by which groups, individuals, organizations, institutions, and societies increase their abilities to one, perform functions, solve problems, and achieve objectives, to understand and deal with their development needs in a broader context, and of course in a sustainable manner, we can see institutional capacity development is taking place or will take place. Again, organizational capacity building is a process of improving an organization's systems, structures, processes, and people in order to improve its operations, services, or product for increased success. What are these areas of capacity development? Of course, an individual should be endowed. An individual should possess certain skills and knowledge. An individual should have an understanding of how a system operates or how a structure is. And of course, as a parliament, which of course we know is an organization, the organization of the parliament, as it is, should have should have a culture of how things are being done. And of course, whatever it is that is being done to improve the system, to improve the structure, to improve the processes of doing things. And that is what we call, refers to as enabling environment. If there is the enabling environment, then the sky is your limit. But when the environment is not enabling, with even your capacity, with even your skills and knowledge, you cannot do anything. So we should have an enabling environment taking into consideration individual understanding, arguments, and of course, group dynamics. And then we now say, yes, the environment is ripe for us to regenerate, to reinvent, to really do what should be done in order to improve the system and for the betterment of the system too. But why is it really important? Why should it be important that we should be having capacity building? I'm sure this conference is a typical example of capacity building, because I'm listening to other presenters, you are sharing experiences, how things are done in this place, how things are not done in this place. Again, I'm sure by the end of these conferences, your interaction will go a long way in trying to infuse or change or advocate for ways of doing things to be better in your various countries. ICD or capacity building development, institutional capacity building often represent change and arises when an institution requires new capacities. We seriously need new capacities. We do. Let me cite an example. Look at your office space. Who do you work with? What are the gadgets that you work with? Do you have translators? Do you have machines while you are talking is transcribing what you are saying? And is it transcribing very well? Because there are applications when you are talking, they only take the sound and they give you a different interpretation. How well do you use all those things? While high-level commitment is necessary, ICD often effort must quickly build a constituency for change in multiple levels. I think we have identified that level from the individual, from the group, and of course, in the institution. This is necessary in all situations, but essential when there is a frequent turnover in top leadership. The efforts to build capacity among parliamentarians can result in a better understanding, willingness to understand plan changes. This will require that Parliament undertake a series of steps oriented towards the improvement and protection of their values, which enhance democracy at the long run. I understand one of us from Sierra Leone yesterday was saying that they cherish what they do. This is another point to say that, yes, we know you cherish what you do, but with enhanced capacity building, you can do even better. Building parliamentarians' capacities to advance their knowledge and skills to understand how their functions can make contributions to the targets set by their national frameworks, policies, and of course, national agenda. In case you have one, the parliamentarians should be able to understand what is it that is lined up and how do we work towards achieving that objective. Probably if you have a plan of action, a strategic framework, an agenda to be achieved, that cannot be achieved without you really thinking inward or even thinking outside the box because you want to achieve that agenda. It also requires that they understand when and how their engagement may be critical to achieve desirable outcomes in the context of resilience and, of course, in sustainability. At the elementary level, it is necessary for parliamentarians to understand risk. Begin identifying the gaps in national legislative frameworks and understand how these apply to their real-world activities. It's only yesterday that a member of the Senate rose at the floor of the House in Abuja, and he was saying that from 2004 to date, the laws that were enacted, the laws that were signed by the president are not put together or they are not gazetted for people to easily lay their hands on. And he is moving the motion that they should be compiled in one book rather than having a patch being sold to people. It should be put in one place so that when you lay your hand, just like the law reforms, if you lay your hands, you understand from so year to so year, these are the laws that have been passed. You need capacity to do that. You cannot just do it anyhow. And again, from experience, it is possible from experience here, we were able to go to court, and the magistrate was unable to lay his hand on the right law to use to prosecute. And the culprit was let go because the verb law, Violence Against Persons Prohibition Act, the judge can lay his hand on and he cannot cite it. And because he cannot lay his hand on, he cannot cite it, he cannot prosecute the perpetrator. So we have to pick up the case again so that the right law is being cited and the perpetrator being punished. So you need a lot of capacity. And most of this capacity is not what you are going to get in the classroom. From your day-to-day interactions, whether within or outside, it gives you an understanding on how can you improve your working condition, how can you improve processes, how can you improve system. And it is these structures and systems that are being improved upon that make your work sustainable, that give you the personality you so desire. Without that, then you are wallowing in certain conditions that it becomes a guesswork rather than being a reality. Now, one avenue to strengthen parliamentarians' capacities is to envisage the multiple overlaps and connection through system thinking, which offers an opportunity for individuals to better understand feedbacks and unintended consequences. I think somebody did talk about this yesterday, about how do you get feedback from the laws that have been already have been signed to law. How do you get feedback about them? And how well do we say they are okay? Or how well do we say they are not really okay? How well do we say we will need to have some kind of amendment? How do we re-strategize? Things like that. With your knowledge and skills as parliamentarians, you can propose that leveraging the parliamentary powers requires helping individual legislatures develop their capacity to recognize and understand the science behind those frameworks, accounting for their diversity and personal backgrounds. Furthermore, they greatly facilitate their engagement. You help them in no small measure in carrying out their activities. And you need to have that serious capacity so that you stand afloat and, of course, help them out, taking into consideration the diversity that we are in. Let me give you an example. I live across the river. From my village to the next village is less than 20 kilometers, but it's a different dialect, completely different dialect. No single word is related to the other. And in Taraba State, out of the whole of Nigeria, you have over 100 different ethnic groups that speak distinct language. So when you have members of parliament coming from this kind of constituency, you need to have the capacity to help them roll out of that diversity that they come from. They need to understand that. There is evidence of parliamentarians contributing to framing agendas. Your wealth of experience give you the capacity, the knowledge, the foresight to help in framing agendas. You've been there for years, you've been working for years, you've been working with so different kinds of politicians coming and going. It gives you the capacity to foresee. So whenever they come and they want to make an agenda, they want to come up with a new program, your skills and knowledge in that area help them in framing it. Because you've been there, you have seen, and you felt it. You felt it. Therefore, capacities at the national and local level need to account for the political and social relationships that are at the center of system dynamics. Building these capacities necessitates innovative approaches that enable decision makers to anticipate or to respond to challenges. I'm very happy to stand in front of you to make this presentation on behalf of Dr. Chris. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for such a comprehensive and informative presentation. Indeed, matters of capacity building are key to the sustainability of Parliament, because without a capacitated Parliament, nothing can happen. And I will also say that the death of parliament is the death of the nation. So if the parliament is not functional, the nation is not functional. The key reason being that parliament, it is the acting principle, I will put it like that, is acting on behalf of the people who are the principal. So it becomes the acting principle, implementing decisions and guarding resources on behalf of the people. And I think that what is key also for me, before I invite colleagues to make their inputs, is also to look at issues such as things that threaten the resilience of parliament. Then I'll just draw a few. Party politics, the possibility of capture of parliament, and maybe the limited resources that sometimes the executive gives to parliament. So with those few remarks, without much ado, I will call on delegates to raise questions or make comments to the presentation. And if ever you are there, you want to comment, you want to enrich. But also I will say that it is important, especially for this presentation, to share our experiences, because we are from various legislatures, various institutions. We are here to learn from each other in terms of how are we dealing with issues of capacity, how are we also dealing with those thorny ones, the critical ones that I've mentioned, that can threaten the sustainability and the resilience of parliament. So let me invite colleagues, let me invite delegates to make their inputs by the show of hands. And then, yeah, I can see. Yeah, there's a hand there from South Africa. Any other hand? Ghana, and then and then Sierra Leone. Yes, I'll take those for now, and then we'll go for the second page. Thank you.
Thanks, Program Director. My name is Winston Sebopela, is my surname, from South Africa. Thanks for the presentation that we just received on capacity building. My question is related to, first of all, with so many languages in Nigeria, how do you find it easy to deal with? And do you have a floor language when there's plenary? And then how do you interpret to the members? And when you go outside for outreach, do you use a certain language that is common in the area, or do you have interpreters for all the other dialects that are in a particular state? Like you said, Taraba is almost more than 100 in Taraba alone with those dialects. And again, how do you take sign language also? Do you have an issue of sign language? And the role of ICT in terms of assisting Parliament to get to the level that we want to. Do you have a certain type of system that assists you when you are doing this Hansard recordings and also you are interpreting? Thank you.
I must say that Nigeria is using one language, which is English as a lingua franca. In our parliament, we use English as a lingua franca. In terms of outreaches, and when you go out, there is no restriction of language. If where you go predominantly is a particular language, and for you to drum your message very well, you use the language they understand. On the issue of sign language, I don't know, but I think it's like of late I saw something like sign language in the House of Assembly. I don't know. Probably it's a different House of Assembly. I don't know. But as an activist, we always insist that wherever there is going to be a gathering of people, you need to have sign language interpreters. And one of the problems I know, I'm not a parliamentarian, neither am I a politician. One of the problems that I know that they are facing, which of course impact on us, is the lack of the ICTs. Those things that when a parliamentarian or a member is talking, it is expected that he's translating what he is saying, rather than somebody is writing, you are talking, you are writing, and at the end of the day, you give this judgment and you get a different result as we experienced 2 days ago. I doubt if they have that, but it will be better, it will be cheaper, it will be smoother when such gadgets are employed. It makes the process very quick. Before you are in this session, you have a transcript of what is said, and all you needed to do is to just go back and edit, because sometimes the Google machine makes mistake, most especially when you say something that is closer to another thing, it switch your language. So all you needed to do is to do the editing. That's what it is in Nigeria. The language is English as a lingua franca. In the parliament, it is, and in most places, it is. Despite the fact that even at our educational system, you are allowed to use local language from primary school to the junior secondary school. You can use the local language where you find yourself to teach. It is in the school curriculum. But of course, there too, we have a challenge, because have you trained the teachers that need to use that local language at that local level? That has been a challenge. Thank you very much.
Yes, Ghana.
Good morning, colleagues, and thank you, presenter, for the insights given us this morning. And I know colleagues will agree with us that capacity building is very important, because Parliament and its workings are different. You won't get it anywhere unless you are trained on the job. And Parliament of Ghana, recognizing this fact, has a policy now that every graduate entrant picked, you have to go for 6 months training before you start working. We started that with our Hansard staff, and we realized that it was working. So now it has been extended to all graduate entrants. You have to do 6 continuous months to know the workings of Parliament before you are assigned to take any other responsibility. With the MPs, we have a system. Now we have a training institute. So we use the training institute to organize most of the workshops and training activities. Those we don't have capacity inside, we bring in lecturers and other from academia and other institutions. The problem that we have now is at times with IT, you know, some of our members were born before computer, and even some of us were born before computer. So it's not easy getting them to appreciate certain things. And because of that, it makes it difficult introducing certain IT processes. Like you want members to file questions online, and you want them to access other paper online, but at time we have all these things, but you have to do the hard copy too. So these are the things. So I also want to find out from you if we have a means of doing some training, that's for adult training. You know, they will prefer more visuals and other things. If you have a curriculum that will help us, we will also appreciate. We also have this post-budget workshop, analyzing our budgets. It's been there for almost 15 years or more. After the presentation of the budget to Parliament, we have post-budget workshop before we start the debate and analysis of the estimate. And this one, we bring in people from academia, civil society, to take members through as to how the budget can be analyzed. And it's very helpful. Those who don't have can also try and then also institute this. Thank you.
The person I'm standing in for works with the same similar institute you have in Ghana here in Abuja, where I'm sure they are doing very, very wonderful things in terms of training, organizing workshop, and of course, building capacities for member of the parliament. It's a very big institute. And apart from that too, we even have the Institute for Democratic Studies. And apart from that too, we even have an NGO, a very big NGO that engage with the parliamentarians. CISLAC is known. CISLAC stands for Civil Legislative Advocacy. The organization is purely dealing, working with legislators and legislative matters. So we have such institutions in Nigeria, and they are wonderfully doing it okay. But as for us to come and maybe take a review of how effective it is, it's a different thing all entirely. But I assure you, having the ICT as a means of working for the parliament is better. If the parliamentarians themselves don't know how to assess it, I'm sure they have aides. They have aides that can really help them in trying to do it. If he's able to come up with a paper, a motion, and he needed to go through the ICT, I'm sure he will be helped by any of his aides to put it on. But it's better when such gadgets are available for them to talk, and at the end of the day, you have it printed out in a jiffy. And just like I said, those things printed out needed to be edited because of certain errors, so that you don't have A to become B. Thank you very much.
Yeah, Sierra Leone.
Good morning, Doctor. Thank you very much for your presentation. My question might not be for you. It might be for my colleagues, and maybe a peer review kind of lens. For us who have stayed in Parliament for 15 years and above, I think a good number of my colleagues here have stayed in Parliament. There is a new normal when it comes to capacity building, which we refer to as corporate governance. For us who have stayed in Parliament for more than 15 years, when we started our career, we did not actually got to know about corporate governance. We are only very much concerned about the traditional, enhancing the traditional functions of Parliament. But now we have the corporate governance idea coming up. Now we see M&E in Parliament. You see scaling up protocol. Now you see we talk about procurement and logistics. Yes, risk management. So all of these things are referred to as new normal in Parliament. So how are we managing, my colleagues? How are we managing this emerging issue, corporate governance? My colleague here is one of the drivers for corporate governance. So some of us, they were calling some of us traditionalists. We are asking, why do we actually have to have M&E? You guys are scaling up protocol. We can just talk to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs to support us with protocol. But this is the new normal, and we have to live with it. So how are we actually managing these nuances coming to Parliament over the years? ICT, we just can't do without ICT. So how are we managing this in our context? So, Doctor, this is not academic. Yes, this is practical.
Practical.
Okay, thank you very much.
All right. Is it? Oh, Ghana. All right. I saw you, Uganda, and then Tanzania, and then South Africa. Yes. Yeah.
I wanted to add on MNE. There is result-based management, which is also a new norm. So those who are going to share with us, you tell us how you are addressing these new norms, because we know how Parliament has been very traditional. I'll share my experience as somebody who is less than 15 years. The challenges I faced in capacity building and how we are addressing it.
Thank you, presenter, for that good presentation. My interest is the area of capacity building for members of Parliament. Generally, we look at Parliament, its role being to oversight and check the executive. And we build their capacity to be able to check the executive. However, new scenarios arise. In the multi-party dispensation, the members of the opposition believe that they bear a bigger job or responsibility in checking and oversighting the executive more than the members of the ruling party. They do believe that the members of the ruling party don't behave as Parliament to check the excesses or to oversight the ruling party to which they belong to. And they therefore believe that they should have special capacity building as members of the opposition to be able to oversight the executive, which is contrary to what their colleagues in the ruling party do believe. And it puts now the office of the clerk in difficulties that you are going to give more capacity building to members of the opposition more than those in the ruling party. So I just want your opinion on that, on whether it is correct for you to do more capacity building to members of the opposition in the belief that they have more responsibility in making the executive to account, not the general Parliament. Thank you.
Thank you very much, my chair from Limpopo and the chair of the SoCATT. My questions will be divided into in two parts. One, in our constitution, you can become a member of Parliament if maybe you are Tanzanian at the age of 21 years, but to read and write Swahili or English. That will be the qualification to be a member of Parliament. So, and the people in their constituents, they vote the member who they want. Either they not depend much on the education. They just vote for the one who they wanted. My question is that, in our experience, when you put someone for capacity building, when the government put a ceiling of the budget for the country, the capacity building is one which suffered a lot. It suffered a lot. Currently, we have a very small amount of the money for capacity building. We normally depend with the donor fund, and you know the complication of donor fund. So, how the presenter can help us how to secure the resources for capacity building. I know capacity building is very, very important for staff and for members of Parliament. That is one. The second one, we are learning here, the clerks. How can we streamline
what we have learned here to our colleagues at home. In our country, in our parliament, it's good enough. We have annual clerk at the table training. Apart from all other topics which will be presented, our topic will be, the additional topic will be this one, what we have learned. So that, so what I'm interested here, what ways can we arrange to share the experiences from other parliaments? As I hear more than 3-4 times, our chair, the SoCATT chair, insisting us to share what we have in our parliaments or sub-parliaments. So this is very important. In some countries, I read some of them, all the members who travel outside and learn anything, when they come back to their home, they have to present what they've learned to the Committee of Foreign Affairs. And then the Committee of Foreign Affairs or the parliament, that particular parliament, share what they have learned. So what measure or what rules or what we can do for enable us to share like this. Thank you very much.
If I may start from the question from Uganda. I think in Africa we have problem with politics. And I don't want to air my personal view about African politics. I may end up not saying the right thing and some other person may not even like it. But the truth again is that as a social educator, I teach citizenship education for over 20 years. The essence of you going to the parliament is service. It's not self-seeking. You need a political party to vie for a political position, which is, to some other countries, is constitutional. If you don't belong to a party, you don't get elected. I know in the 50s, before the independence, during the colonial regime in Nigeria, the colonial masters have what we call unofficial representation. They just sit down and appoint people more than the ones that Calabar and Lagos will produce as elected members. So when you go to the parliament, you discover if there are dicey issues, those unofficials that were appointed by the colonial masters, by the raise of hand, they are in majority. They silence the ones that were genuinely elected in Calabar and, of course, in Lagos. What I'm trying to say here is that the friction in that is lack of conception and really understanding that whatever they do at their parliament, they are doing it for the people. And why are they there? They are supposed to serve the people, not themselves. So that friction of thinking, okay, this is a ruling party and this is not a ruling party, it's an African issue. You discover that the ruling party protects the government more than required. It's not protecting the people, but they protect the government more than required. It's funny you hear somebody telling you that the president is not aware. The president is not aware. And as somebody that have read citizenship education, I've been teaching for these years, I said, that excuse shouldn't be said. Whoever says that the president is not aware, you fire him. You can't say that. Because it is a practice that before the president goes to sleep, he reads a security report, whether he is in Nigeria or outside. That security report, he reads it. My governor here, if he's out of this place, he reads the security report they sent to him. This is what happened in JALINGO in TARABA state today. So when you say the president is not aware, people like us get pissed off. You don't say that. Okay? The culture of protecting the ruling party is what took us to where we are today. If you are in the parliament, your service is to the people. That division of coming from where is not there. Despite the structures and probably the system in the parliament identify certain position. Chief whip, majority whip, minority, this, we understand that. It's there. But what are you servicing for? Why are you there? You are there for your people. So if there is any system, any agenda, any motion that you feel it's not okay for the people, you need to rise up and say no. It is an African problem. But if you look at what happened in America some few weeks ago, or probably a month ago, a member House of Representatives was impeached. It wasn't just a single Republican party that sent him packing, no. So we need to have this
bipartisanship at the parliament in such a way that we look at issues that affect, that impact on the citizen, not issues that impact on us. And we don't have the culture like the Western country where somebody is in the parliament for 30, 40 years. If you are in Nigeria, somebody wonder, hey, what the hell is he doing there? Is that his father's house? 40, 30 years? No, you need to give way for somebody to come. So, we will need to have value orientation, having an understanding that when you are elected, the way and manner you are elected is constitutional, that you should be elected that way. But the moment you are at that level, you are at the national spotlight. Whatever you do, you are doing it for your country, not for you. So I think there should be an understanding, there should be a value reorientation, so that the opposition should not feel that they, of course, it's a culture that they protect, but the opposition should not feel that they own more power than the ruling class. Because the ruling class are there by their majoritarian tendency, that's why they are there. And as an opposition, they should be constructive in their criticism. They should be using facts and figures in their own criticism. But it shouldn't be, I don't think it should be an issue that could be proportion. But it happens in most of our African countries. There is because the fear that the ruling party is protecting, the parliament are protecting the ruling party. And the parliament is not really questioning the excesses of the ruling party. So you have the opposition saying more than they could say. That's my personal feeling. But that could be corrected with probably good approach and having a rethink to really why are we really at the parliament. And in case you are not satisfied, I'm open for more discussion. Sir, I don't know. In Nigeria, we have an institute. The lady from Ghana gave us an example. I don't know if you have same in Tanzania. Do you have an institute where the legislators are trained? In case you don't have, you will give me probably after today. Let me Google and find out foreign, of course, you identify donor fatigue. Donor fatigue is real after COVID. Donor fatigue is real. If you can give me after today, I will do a little research and then come up with agencies that are in East Africa or in Tanzania that can offer such services that you are talking about. And when you go back home, we can even share a concept note, so that when you go back home, you can constructively meet with the donor to really help you in capacity building. I know in Nigeria we have the international cooperation, where they catalog donor funding and their activities. If you have same in Tanzania, try to look at donors in Tanzania presently and what are they really doing. And then look at their strategic work. What are they doing now? When is it going to end? Because in international cooperation, you have the right to go to them and say, why don't you do this for us in the next cycle of your program? That is what we refer to as local content. You have the right to make that. You have the right to make that demand. But I'm sure most governments do not look at it that they have the right to go and ask these people some funding. So give me a day after today. I will get you some donors. We have good partners in Uganda. The CSO network in Uganda are doing very, very wonderful in the area of tax. Probably I will go through Uganda and see how they connect to Tanzania. Thank you very much.
Oh, okay, thanks.
My colleague from Nigeria, can you allow me to contribute after what he has just said? Some thoughts. What you've just mentioned about donors. We parliaments, we should be conscious about the issue of fundraising. We are not implementers. The big portion of fundraising lies in the hands of the executive. Now, when you are analyzing the budget, of course, there are areas which are shown that this budget will be supported by revenue collection, other parts are from loans, other parts are from donors. Those donors who are funding your yearly or 5-year program, when you approach them by telling them you are going to carry out oversight functions for the funding they've provided, most of the times they will allocate a budget to you for carrying out oversight functions. Now I'm talking in the language of Parliament. I'll give an example. EU is one of the donors, USAID is one of the donors, and other bilateral donors. If you approach them with a proper program of oversight activities, you are going with the Committee A, Committee B to look at thematic area, energy sector, infrastructure, in a particular area, in particular areas, to see how these projects are being implemented, the donors will not refuse to give you the funding. That's number one. So you are part of approving the budget, but in line with the budget, in your activities as a parliament, you put up activities that can be funded by the ordinary budget or activities that can be funded by the donors. I have seen it in practice. It's a new way that the donors are supporting beyond what used to be there traditionally. Secondly, I wanted to answer your question. What we are learning here, I have a team, technical team, is going to come out with recommendations which we share usually with the parliament. Now, it is our responsibility as clerks to ensure that what we've learned, we see how we are sharing it with our colleagues to improve the ways we are carrying out our daily businesses. Yeah? I wanted to add on the request from my colleague from Sierra Leone. Now I'm talking of somebody who wears 2 hats. I had a hat in the executive. I've been in parliament for 7 years. Parliaments are conservative institutions, but they are now faced to challenges which are dynamic and they have to adjust. What I'm saying is that when we are doing also the planning, starting from the strategic planning, you have to analyze, how was I doing my businesses in the last 5 years? Where were the gaps, starting from the corporate governance, starting on how the structures of the MPs are within the structure of the parliament. I'm talking of the bureau, presiding committees, and I arrive at the structure of the staff. You may find that the structure of the staff that you have does no longer fit your deliverables. Why? Today we have technological advancement. I'm talking on my case, every 5 years as the parliamentarians come in, we do an assessment and we revisit our structures and terms of reference to see if those who are coming, we are going to be able, with the knowledge of our staff, to deliver. And it has transpired. Those who are 15 years and old, sorry that I say, are resistant to change. It is a true matter, it is a reality. And when we look at the executive, they are moving very fast because there are donors which are forcing them to adapt to certain processes and practices. Those are result-based management. What does it mean? What does it require? Today, when a staff is preparing his or her performance contract, it's no longer the legal advices I have provided. It is how they have impacted the legislation process. So you ought to rethink on how the output of what we do compared to the outcomes of our activity. There is a link. So we are forced to move there. Otherwise, we'll be left behind. We will continue to report, give reports that do not have data. That's why yesterday my colleague from Zambia was presenting evidence data-based. All these new norms, they are on the website. There are people who have developed those expertise. What we do, we sometimes use even colleagues, experts who have been trained from the executive. They come, they share with us, and then we adapt it to our needs. So the planning based on the outcome, I know it's very difficult in the parliamentary setup, but that's where we are all moving. Because even your Ministry of Finance, they will ask you, how many oversight activities, how many projects have you visited? What did you see? Did you check the procurement, whether it was done on time? Did you see the level at which the building was? What were the errors? So that when the Auditor General report comes, you have some information to challenge him too, or to agree with him, so that you call in that particular ministry. Why did the Auditor General come out with this? We also saw it on the field. What were you doing? At the sideline, we have the prosecution. Sometimes they are taken immediately to the court. So you see, we are moving towards the processes that are accountable. Our traditional ways were to write up the wording. Now our write-up has to be supported by figures, by evidence, by facts that show this project had this amount of money. When we went there, it had been implemented at this level. The procurement was at this level. How many staff were working? So we are also challenged within us to learn the budget process, how it has to be done, with the new areas the ministries are putting forward. I just wanted to make a call that all these new areas, we ought to embrace them to improve our deliverables, because the funds are moving in the direction of scarcity. Thirdly, we are saying that we need a lot of money for capacity building. Within the parliaments that we have staff that have got knowledge. What I've been encouraging with my colleague, the technical team, is to share experiences among ourselves. And I'm one of the advocates because I have seen the change it has brought to our parliament, calling our colleagues from Parliament A, coming for training my colleagues. I pay a ticket and DSA, they come and train. That is one from other parliament. Secondly, internally, those staff who have experiences, we are encouraging to put on-job training, being trained by our colleagues. It is important. It challenges every staff to be on the key learning journey that everyone will have a turn to train their colleagues. Fourthly, we are encouraging our MPs. Some of them come with good knowledge of particular areas. We tell them, our staff to be able to support, you cannot, sometimes you refuse to train your colleagues, but we are giving you space. Train our MPs on policy analysis. We'll prepare guidelines. He will go there and share knowledge with his colleagues. We'll invite him too to come and train our staff. We are doing that because of scarcity of resources. And we have a mandate as clerks to train our colleagues to deliver. Now, when I talk of delivering, even our staff have to be accountable. We have to put up, colleagues, a checklist to see what they have done to train, what have they done in their assignments to be able. Lastly, our parliamentarians have to be accountable too, because working in a collective committee, some used to come with audio, they would sit, look at videos, and then the chairperson comes to complain to the Bureau of the Speaker. They say, so and so, while I'm in the debate, they are looking at the video. They are not answering. So we put in a place where even their chairpersons are reporting those who are not doing their work correctly. I just wanted to share those insight innovations that we can develop ourselves to be able to deliver. Lastly, the technological advancement of e-parliament. For those countries that have already carried them on board, they are going to be a tool where we can even put presentation. Some of our colleagues looks into them. What they don't understand, you call them for a Q&A session to answer what they have not done. I just wanted to share innovative ways. We all know that the scarcity of funds is there. And then when you go for the budget, we all know that when it reaches Parliament, it's where they cut capacity building. It is true with the financial shocks, they will not increase for next year our budget. So we have to look at innovative ways. Lastly, there are so many information that are on the website. If you look at the website of Australia, you will get a lot of information. I like what my colleague from Ghana said. We are happy that you shared it. Our core list of trainings can be put on some of the websites so that our Commonwealth parliamentarians family can look at them, to inspire them, to learn from it, and then you adapt it. Lastly, the issue of languages, I think that's an area that is a non-go in our mixed, because it's a constitutional arrangement for each country. But I'll just share for us, our parliamentarians debate in our local language, but we translate it in both and English for the purpose of consumption for our foreign partners and our foreign investors. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Chair. So there's Tanzania and South Africa, and then I don't know which order am I saying first. You done? Okay, all right, okay, and then you can give Nigeria, and then South Africa. I'm sorry, you'll come after Nigeria. Yes, Mr. Adams.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Chairperson, for the insights. When the Prof was taking that institutional capacity development, it became quite clear that we clerks in the strategic plan for the next phase of parliamentarians to come are convinced that some are new, some don't know about the parliament, so they need to be trained. We prepare for their orientation, we prepare for their training, but we've also forgotten that you give what you want. In fact, for us at the National Assembly, we just realized that in the next 2 years, the people with the capacity and competence would have eased out of the system, and one of the members who lost before and now came back moved the motion to extend the years of the staff by another 5 years, so that these ones who are about to exit will be able to impact on the newly recruited, the younger ones in the system. And in trying to get that bill through, we also discovered that actually there is no university in the country that offers any first degree on anything parliament. And so everybody who is anything in the parliament is what you learn on the job, depending on who started coaching you when you joined. And so it's a challenge on its own. So the capacity, the people to build the capacity need to be built up also so that they can offer what is strong and tangible. And then you discover that also, as clerks, you get to the situation wherein the job to be done, an MP comes, I don't want to work with this particular clerk for this committee. Change him, and now the clerk is caught between having the, I don't know whether it's happening in other countries anyway, I'm just being, yes. So what do I do? Return this clerk or change this clerk? For the fear of my own job, maybe I'll change this clerk. And you discover that when you take that decision, you're already in trouble. Because every other MP will want to change the committee clerk. And we had a boss that had left us. That one would tell you, go and manage each other. I don't have another clerk to give you. And he did it so well that the MPs now knew that there is no need going to him to ask for a change. Understudy each other to know how to get the job done. And it worked. And it's still working. So for us, I think like my brother from Tanzania, I think it's Tanzania, like he said, it's not about coming to SoCATT and going. No, it's when you get back. Like in my department, when I stopped committee works and became a director to head the documentation, I realized that 80% of the staff I have, they don't even understand what we are talking about. And so we now develop every month's meeting on training. Every month, I'll meet with them, gives the training, they ask questions, and they start to learn. We can adopt it. Whatever we have learned here, thank you so much for giving us the presentation on a flash, so it's not as if you don't have it. It's about passing the knowledge when we get home. It's about understanding that this system is going. The American Congress, not even the Congress now, the houses of assembly at the states, the 50 states, what the clerks do is that because the parliament goes on break in August, so while they are on break, all the clerks gather to review what transpired in the parliaments, the challenges that took place in your own, how did you handle it? By the time they do the peer review, everybody gets them ready for the new parliamentary session. I think if we introduce it, it will also do us very good. So to add to the question you raised about trying to defend the party in power, I think they do that to protect their selfish interests as politicians when the issue of the masses are involved. When they want to share the things they share within themselves, I don't think they remember the majority or the minority party. All of them, I don't know of other parliaments anyway, but it's obvious that there is no difference when it comes to sharing between the majority and the minority. But when it's the issue of the masses, because the majority wants to retain the power in the next dispensation, they pretend to be protecting something before the media. But thank God we are all the prophet. I think we need to lay emphasis on us more than getting them, because if they destroy the system under 4 years and they are not re-elected, the system institution suffers more. One clerk who has spent 25, 30 years in the system is an institution. Somebody who has less than just 4 years to manage himself comes to destroy that one person. If he succeeds, the institution suffers for it. In conclusion, you discover that America now shifted from the normal parliamentary language to what they call plain English drafting terminology. So it's no longer cast on the parliamentary unchangeable orthodox methods. No, you can still do the parliamentary work in plain English, so that whosoever picks your piece of legislation will understand it. It doesn't need to go through the colloquial school of legalism, legalese, and all those things. No. So we may also introduce it within our own assemblies to let people know that you can do piece of legislation and still stand it out in plain English than insisting that this is non-parliamentary. In fact, when I entered newly, I have to now go for a training to know how to do communication in the parliament. Despite the knowledge of English, you discover that your English is not enough to carry you in the parliament. You need to understand the parliamentary English to be able to flow. But I think we can now lay emphasis. There are publications now on plain English drafting, and I'm sure it will do us much good if we look at them. Thank you.
Thank you for your contribution. I just wanted to add on something. As a clerk, even administrators, sometimes you see your staff wanting to go into politics of parliamentarians. Don't fall in that, because I am a clerk as your protector. And the tendency of MPs coming in saying, I don't want this, I don't want that, sometimes it emanates from within yourselves, whereby you find that some staff, I lead a lenient team, so sometimes I am forced to take them to support committees. Then comes in competition. I tell them, no, I have given an opportunity to learn and serve. Your time will come. I've just had 6 committee clerks who went on retirement. So those that had been assisting, I had to open an internal opening competition. You give an opportunity to everyone to participate. But I always tell them, you respect your chairperson than the clerk, you are finished. When you have a problem, don't come to me. If you come to me, I'll grill you first, and then I'll answer to the member of parliament. Because clerks carry a lot of things to manage. You know what I mean, in a democratic environment that we work in. But staff should not also be a problem. They should not. You should be supportive to your clerk, because even we as clerk develop a fair, transparent process of treating the staff the same way. And then seeing those who are weak, sometimes you're not the one who has recruited them, build their capabilities. If they don't perform, put them out, exit them. And then you build the younger ones who are within. This is very important, because the frustration you have, we live with it every day. But how do we come out? It's that the parliamentarian, you remind him he has come in on a political ticket. These stuff that the clerk is managing are, for us, it's special. We are under public service. We are public servants. So we follow the rules of the public servants. We can't just exit them. We have a responsibility to allow them to improve, to coach them, to evaluate them on a yearly basis. If they don't deliver, she will sign for me on a paper, so that I have a document to base on to see what she's complaining about. So it is a two-way relationship. But clerks, protect my colleagues. It's important. If you listen only to parliamentarians, one way you can exit some of the staff, but even the staff have the responsibility again to ensure that they deliver. Lastly, for the training of the staff that the Ghanaians have, it is unique. It is unique. I attended a training in Europe where Europeans now are requesting universities to bring in a course on parliamentary procedures in their curricula of political science, so that those who are doing political science will come out, or those who want parliamentary process and procedures as a key course to take, and they will be invited to compete. It is a core course that they are requiring now. So I found it as an innovative way that we can share with our universities. One, to have allies who can compete to come into the parliament, having that course as optional if you want to work for the parliament. That's an initiative I learned that I wanted to share with you, colleagues.
Mr. Adams?
Thank you, Chairperson. I think most of my comments have been covered. Politicians... Hello? Oh, politicians are politicians, and they're probably always going to be politicians. They are in attendance for a parliamentary term, and then some of them come back, others don't come back. But if in a 4-year period the institution is damaged, and I use the word damage in inverted commas, to such an extent, it means us as the clerks and the administrators that have to live with it and or correct it. Okay? It's not difficult to straddle into the sphere of the politicians. Because remember, our colleagues are always in contact with the politicians through the work that they do, whether it be in a committee meeting or oversight visits, etc., etc. We in my parliament last year, we had the challenge where committees wanted to dictate how many support staff goes on oversight visits, etc., etc. We unfortunately could not accommodate that. We had then assessed what is the work of the support staff in committee engagements, whether it be oversight visits, etc., etc. And we had then developed and approved let's call it a standard operating procedure of how many support staff would go and what they actually do. Because what we've picked up, and I think the chairperson has raised it, that sometimes the challenges emanate from within. It's because of the relationship that has now been built between the politicians and the colleagues on our side of the business that there's a bit of an influence. You can sometimes even hear when the parliament appears in front of a committee, the questions that are asked can only come from within, because they are so specific that you can already see where the questions come from. That was my comment, Chairperson. Maybe just my question. I think the colleague from Sierra Leone had yesterday spoken about how legislators can reinvent themselves. I think in terms of the capacity building, there's what is your view regarding us as the institution providing an enabling environment for that reinventing of the legislators? Because like I said earlier, some of them stay only for a short period, others stay for multiple periods, but surely those who stay for multiple periods have to be, because we are in an ever-changing environment, from one term to the next, they need to do things differently. They have to reinvent themselves. I mean, social media is where the public participation actually happens. People say what they need to say about whatever they want to say. If our parliamentarians are not up to standard in terms of that type of engagement, they either get themselves into trouble or the members of the community are not happy with the responses and the engagements. Thank you.
I think you're very right in that angle. The National Assembly, some years back, I don't know if they are still doing it. Every member of the parliament is rated, and that is thrown to the public. How many number of bills or motion, things like that. And we tend to appreciate their participation at that very level. And
that kind of information is thrown to the social media and you hear people making comment on the performance. In fact, to some extent, when Dr. Manzo from this part of the zone was unable to come back, a lot of people lamented that, oh, that man has gone with his skills and whatever. It's really a disadvantaged situation. But again, in the issue of capacity building, if it is possible to have a kind of a cascading, and then we have kind of a mentorship, it shouldn't be a one chance of a thing, but there should be a deliberate policy or deliberate structure that such persons should be mentoring other persons, and from there again you have them cascading same, like in TOT kind of format. It will give us the desired skills. It will still give us that reservoir of knowledge and skills that we so desire. If the person goes, well, you lament a little bit, but of course there are people that he has mentored and they are behind, and such people too should increase their capacity and do likewise. We need to create that culture, because if we don't have that culture in the system, then the parliament will be facing this setback of one good person going and you have to go back all over again and start all over. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. I think we're moving towards a wrap up, and then I'll give to Sierra Leone, and then from there we'll be moving towards wrapping it up. Thank you.
This is thanks to you. It's a very inspiring session. I want to share a little bit of experience. Chair, you mentioned Canada experience, and I think McGill is one university that has been very, very excellent when it comes to offering parliamentary training. But there is also another option or alternative into that. There are training centers like the Kenya. Kenya has the Center for Training, which has been, and colleagues from Kenya, I want to recognize you for that, because it's a model that Sierra Leone is using presently. For Kenya, it's the Parliament of Kenya. They have the center like Ghana. But what they do is to look at, they work with universities jointly. They develop material jointly, and they can offer training jointly. And that particular model, how I see it useful to share, it's useful because when it comes to delivering training for our members of parliament specific, those that have been there, like he said, 15 years, 20 years, 30 years, they are enriched with a lot of information that we need to tap. We shouldn't leave them. That's why yesterday I was so happy when I saw a former clerk presenting here. And then we are relating. It's different from academic presentation. And when it comes to parliament, it's different. I will use language, somebody mentioned that. I will talk about our standing orders. I will reference our constitution. I will give examples. Somebody who is there, who has been maybe a former MP or a former staff or even a senior staff, being trained to be able to deliver those things will be very important. And that's a model we are using in Sierra Leone based on the Kenya model. What we've done, we call it the Center for Training in Parliamentary Studies. What we've done is to work with donors to develop manuals, curriculum, on specific areas. And now we are working with the university to see, okay, you have your university, and we want to actually certify our MPs and our staffers. How do we work together to be able to do that? How do you bring your own expertise and we bring our own expertise so jointly we can work? So I see that as a very important model that we should also consider. And I think Uganda also have something like that. Colleagues from Uganda, you have the Uganda Parliamentary Training Institute as well. It's working in that direction. I think that's one thing that I want to share, that it's also something to go around. And
Chair, you mentioned also about your experiences, how you've been dealing with staff-related matters, and you mentioned about corporate governance. I am seeing that there is an opportunity here wherein the clerks, if you can have like biannually, even if it's a virtual learning session among the clerks, to be able to discuss this corporate governance, the integration of corporate governance into an established traditional institution. What have been the nuances? What have been the challenges? How has it been difficult for Parliamentary Service Commission and the Parliamentary Administration? How have they been working? There are, for example, for us, our clerk has been a politician before and now is a clerk. So that's a different perspective. And you have other clerks who are public servants. So those perspectives is good for you to share, and it will be able to help us because you are making decisions when it comes to parliamentary administration related issues. So for us, we are supporting, we are working, but when it comes to final decisions, it comes from you. So even if we have learnings here, very useful learning, and we take them home, we have conversation, the buying is also another issue. But if there is an opportunity for you to be sharing that, it will be very important, it will help us. And when we come to reinforce that, we'll be the lieutenants to reinforce that and to help. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Like as I indicated, I think we are wrapping up. I don't know from our presenter, some closing remarks.
Let me say that need for capacity building to improve your work can never be overemphasized. We need to keep doing it because that is the only will of progress you have. And while you are doing it, cascade same, mentor some of your staff to take off from where you are, because no matter how many years you spend in the parliament, one day you are going to go. So leave a legacy. Madam Chair, when you are talking of EU and you say it, and the reason why I refuse to mention EU and you say it, at the very moment, some of us as civil society organizations have kicked against the new ACP agreement with the European Union because it includes something like gay. Unless you sign that, they are not going to give you money. That's the reason why I couldn't sign that. I couldn't go there. In Nigeria, we have started a campaign that Nigeria shouldn't sign the new ACP because of the agreement contained is something else that we are not really very comfortable with. But as I'm sure you raised one important aspect, which is communicating with embassy that are with you. They will really help, because I know CISLAC, as an NGO working exclusively around legislation, have funding from embassies to engage in its work. So it's possible that you can equally do that. But my promise with you still stands. We are going to connect and we are going to see what will really happen. I thank you all, wherever you are. This is my last paper. You are not going to see my face again. I wish you all safe journey. Journey message to where you are going to go. I wish one time I will be in one of your countries. And when I'm there, I will look for the popular media to announce my face. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Doctor. For the signing of ACP-EU, I'm aware, it comes in at the bilateral level where EU supports the activities of oversight through Parliament. Yeah, so it depends on the relationship a country has with EU in terms of accountability. Yeah, okay, because it comes under governance and accountability money. Yes, okay. Thank you very much. A round of applause for our presenter and our chair as well. We are moving to the next presentation. Even though we are an hour late, we'll try to manage it. The next presenter is Clerk of Namibia, and the chair is Uganda. Thanks. And Adams will come to represent me. Thank you. Yes. I'd like to say thank you to all of you. I have to depart for other engagement by my colleagues are here of the steering committee. They will continue the presentation and the discussions. From the bottom of my heart, thank you very much to have made this possible. If you did not commit to attend, the organization was not going to be what it is. I wish you that whatever you've learned from here, you go back and share it. We commit with my steering committee to share the report to all participants and the clerks who sent you so that we can look at what is relevant to where we have gaps to implement. Again, I'm encouraged for the sharing knowledge. We'll continue. This is just a milestone among others we have during our mandate for our society. Wish you a safe trip, and thank you for the local organizers who were headed by the clerk. I think I'll see her at the back. Have a pleasant stay in TARABA. Thank you.
Chairperson, just before you leave, SoCATT Chairperson, just before you leave, maybe just on behalf of the steering committee and the delegates present here, I'd like to thank you for your leadership and guidance in making this development seminar possible. And I'm sure you still have a lot to deliver before the term ends. Thank you very much and safe travels. So colleagues, we're moving on to the next presentation. The next presentation is delivered by the colleague from Namibia, and the topic number 5 on the agenda is recognizing the importance of digitization and modernization of parliaments. We are running quite a bit behind. I am going to ask that we try to be concise when we do our questions and our comments, and I now hand over to the colleague from Uganda who will be chairing this session. Thank you.
Thank you. You have almost said it all. Our next presentation is on exploring innovative approaches for cultivating public participation, trust and confidence in parliaments. And our presenter is Sierra Leone, and the floor is yours. Oh, sorry, it is 5. The topic is recognizing the importance of digitization and modernization of parliaments, and the presenter is Namibia. You are most welcome.
Thank you, Session Chair. Good morning, colleagues. It has been a grilling yesterday, and we are proceeding in the same vein. My name is Tosi Namisep. I am the clerk. We call it the secretary to the National Assembly of Namibia. That is the National Council, pardon. That is the review house. I want to provoke you into sharing experiences relating to the topic at hand. That is importance of digitization and modernization of parliaments, the Namibian experience. With my presentation, which will take a few minutes, as we are under pressure of time, I would want to just provoke you
into a sharing experience. Colleagues, you will recall that we are in a global village. And when we are operating within this global village, we are mindful that change is the only constant. Issues are changing at a very fast pace. And if we do not keep tread with that change, we will be left behind. This is evidence from the industrial revolutions that we have gone through. Not all of us, but the revolution started in around 1780, the first industrial revolution, which was about mechanization. And it took about 100 years for the second industrial revolution of around 1870, which was about electrification. Another 100 years was taken for the third industrial revolution, which dealt with automation around 1970s. But then the 100-year time span became shorter. The fourth industrial revolution dealing with digitization came about 30 years after the third revolution. And we must be mindful that the fifth industrial revolution is already on our doorsteps, which will look at issues relating to the human element, humanization. In terms of the challenges that we have been facing in Namibia, in an attempt to keep tread with the constant changes, we have started the process of what we called the paperless parliament. Paperless parliament, where we aimed to move away from destroying trees, move away from delivering papers to go a bit digital. The challenge with that was the generation of members that we are dealing with. These are people who feel comfortable, who are very conservative, who feel comfortable even if you have done soft copies and whatever, they still need paper. And they are proud to call themselves BC, before computers. Now it is a challenge which has moved on. And then COVID came. COVID came and made certain issues a real challenge. But the aftermath of COVID has taught us a lesson that adoption of technology in operations cannot be ignored. During COVID times, we moved to virtual meetings, which we have been avoiding beforehand. We continue to operate by doing business virtually from constituencies, working from home, etc. We have adopted our rules and procedures to adapt to the new realities. Now these changes, these challenges that came with COVID has moved us into adopting a dedicated strategy. So in Namibia, we have adopted what we call the e-Parliament strategy, which we have launched last year in December. We contain it in a booklet like this. Unfortunately, I only carried one, but we will make sure that we can share soft copies. It is a 5-year plan which is aiming at taking us and enhancing our democratic processes. It is a process which we hope will enable the citizens to engage more with Parliament, because citizens have been demanding a transparent and accountable Parliament. Through this strategy, we want to respond to that challenge. It is also important that Parliament needs to strengthen its institution to become a vibrant, resilient, and pluralistic institution. This strategy further aims to involve modern and reliable digital technologies. So the broader aim is to take democracy to the people and be citizen-centered. In this process, we will also improve on our efficiency and productivity in all the mandates that we are doing. Basically, we have aligned the strategy towards the lawmaking mandates. In the process of lawmaking, how we will enable the general public to participate more meaningfully in terms of the lawmaking. Again, in terms of the mandate of representation, we need to use this strategy to respond and come closer to the people. Again, opening up their doors of accessing the MPs. Similarly, when we talk of oversight, this strategy will assist us in dealing with meaningful oversight, enabling the committees that are going out to do proper committee hearings, proper consultations, and so on. In terms of the lawmaking process, as we have blended the strategy with the mandate, we are looking at a more controlled chamber. The National Assembly chamber that we have already has a digital system, and it also enables the presiding officer, the speaker, to control the house. At times our houses are unruly. Sometimes members will just shout and so on. Now the system that we have put in place is developed in such a way that if a member has not been given the floor by the speaker, that member's access to the sound system is blocked. A member will seek access not by raising the hand, but by engaging on the technology. And once the speaker has given the approval for the member to take the floor, then the system gives access for the member. If the member does not have that approval, then the system has a cut off. That member will not have access to the sound and will not be heard. So as I have said, we are also enhancing public participation in terms of committee processes with this system. Accountability is a serious challenge, and accountability is core to Parliament. So we have started to develop, in terms of the deployment of the strategy, we have started to develop specific apps that will help Parliament to be more accountable. Interactive devices which will allow members to ask questions and to get feedback through that system. In terms of rolling out, there are two instruments that we have started with, which we hope to launch by March next year. The first one that we have dealt with is the bill tracking system. Now the bill tracking system is an internal device, internal web-based instrument which will help us to track bills from the time that it is tabled through all the stages of first reading, second reading, and so on, and what progress has come up. It will, not in the immediate term, but in due course, it will open up to the public also at those stages to track the bills, but already to start to interact with MPs on the bill tracking system. Once a bill has been passed, it is not the end, because the system will then go into archiving the bill and the debates, also enhancing the Hansard process. The second instrument that we have started with is a Parliament mobile app, which is an application which we are developing. We have the prototypes which we are developing to enable the general public to access members, to access the proceedings from wherever they are. A process which will also enable them to provide petitions through the mobile app. The important aspect of that is where members of the public will be enabled to ask questions, to raise concerns, but then to get feedback through this application. I am running through this presentation because of time, In fact, I was not supposed to make the presentation. An IT colleague of mine was supposed to make the presentation who would have gone into how exactly the apps are working. But what I will do is to make sure that the PowerPoint presentation, which is detailing the applications, is shared with the Secretariat. Colleagues, as I have said, I just want to provoke you into a discussion on the importance of digital parliaments and modernization. We need to be modernizing, we need to be innovative constantly. Otherwise, the democratic processes that we are advancing will not flow. Colleagues, with that, I will break at this point and allow for a discussion and some sharing of experiences. Session Chair, I would like to thank you.
Thank you much for that wonderful presentation, which you have summarized into the e-Parliament strategy. It is an eye-opener, and I'm sure colleagues may have areas of clarification or share experiences of what is taking place in their respective parliaments in as far as the e-Parliament strategy is concerned. The floor is open. We have Tanzania. Let's start with Tanzania.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. On this area, Tanzania is far, far, far ahead of it because we are in a paperless. All the documents which are distributed in chamber, the member part, they get it through tablets, through tablets, all, including order paper, bills, motions, everything through tablets. My question is, I always watch the member who are getting in the chamber. You will find half of them, they don't have tablets. Half of them. And if those who have tablets, half of them again, they don't even open, they are just there. So how can you help the member of parliament to concentrate on using, I think that is the easier way of getting information. And I'm even start thinking, why not go back to the hard copies? Because members were busy, open this, I don't know. So how can you help, especially the member of parliament? Of course, for the staff, it's no problem. We are used to it. Thank you very much.
We are at the same challenge. We have provided tablets. We have provided laptops. But still, we have learned that tablets, maybe only after the provision is given to the children. We are in the second round after 2.5 years of renewing the laptops. Members said, no, these laptops are not responding to what we want to do. We are giving new specifications. We have then said, we want you to access the documents and we will give you. So tablets we give after every second year. But still it is not working. So that is the challenge which still keeps us. We are still generating paper in addition to the soft copies that we are providing. We want the participation. So it really remains a challenge when you are dealing with people who feel they are proudly BC, born before computers.
Thank you. Maybe just to Tanzania, and if there's any of the other colleagues who could assist us. In the legislature where I'm the clerk, there's a firm understanding that all House papers are circulated digitally. Yet in the House, when certain members come into the House, they raise a point of order before the session even is on its way, to say that they request hard copies of the documents. Whether it's the appropriation bill, or whether it's the annual reports of executive departments, the request then comes. So maybe we need to work on, and that's why I had asked the question earlier about the members reinventing themselves, because in the digital world, members have to reinvent themselves to function in a digital environment. But I think we're probably always going to have, even if it is just one member that's going to ask or want to use hard copies. But my experience has been that our members over the past 2 parliamentary terms have become younger and younger, and therefore the younger members are more keen on working on the digital tools. When you offer them hard copies, they are just not interested, because they are able to make notes on even on a laptop, they are able to make notes on their iPads, on all of digitally, and that then assists us. And I don't know, we're probably going to have to work on something to get our more mature members to transition into the digital age a bit quicker. But I'm hoping that we would get some experiences from other colleagues on how they have attempted to move members into the digital age. Thank you.
Thank you. We have Botswana next. Botswana.
Good morning. I have a short question. I just wanted to ask how you can push the agenda if the paperless agenda. Okay, I wanted to ask how you can push the paperless agenda if the speakership does not really buy into it, because with our parliament, we're at the 12th parliament now. The 10th parliament was paperless because the speaker insisted on it. Like, she would straight up say no papers in parliament, so everything was emailed, and they also had their tablets, they were given tablets, so that is what they used. And then the next presiding officers who came were not very comfortable with computers and stuff, so we went back to paper. But then with COVID, things moved back to we had virtual parliament. So everything was going on, paperless was on, and then after COVID, we also went back to paper. But then the good thing at the moment is that we can hold general assemblies virtually. Members of parliament get briefed virtually, except in parliament now we have to print everything for them. We email them, but still hard copies work. So how do you deal with, how does the administrative side, how can the administrative side push the agenda?
Our parliament, the voting patterns are still conservative. You get parliaments with the older generation. The youthful members are still minimal, so it remains a challenge. The concern is paperless versus participation. A presiding officer will want for this member to participate properly. Let us give the paper, and then that is what keeps us. What we are hoping for is, and we have engaged with particular development partners, is to have the infrastructure. Once the infrastructure is there, maybe in 2-3 years, to aggressively train the members on the digital vibe, and then to build it in the rules. If it is provided for in the rules that this is the mode of distributing, no one will come with a motion that to demand a paper and so on. At this point, we are not doing it, but that is the aim, to first lay the infrastructure ground and then build it in the rules.
Thank you. We have Kenya next. Let's start with Nigeria.
Good morning, everybody. The digitalization and modernization of proceedings in Parliament, I feel, is in the political will of the leadership. You know, if the leadership have placed priority that this is what they want to achieve, it may not be 100%, but you have to start from somewhere. We cannot continue to be using paper when other parts of the world have gone far away and they are using robots. Remember, we are talking about resilience in the Parliament. And should there be any COVID, God forbid, it is their robot that will do most of the work. And here we are talking about papers. I believe that, you see, why they don't want to do it? Paperwork gives them more flexibility to do what they want to do, maneuver, change certain things at will, without the knowledge of, you know, other parliamentarians. Because the paper office is controlled in my own parliament. You know, the leader is the deputy chairman, and they will also decide who becomes the chairman of that rules and business committee. So if you have it, you know, electronically, it means that every member will know what is happening in the chamber that very day. So the tendency of changing one thing to another will be limited. And the members will be very proactive on what they want to do in the floor of this chamber. In most cases, they come and find themselves not knowing what to do. And you see them docile. They won't contribute anything. You bring a volume of report and you want them to, you know, contribute on that volume. That particular day you are giving it to them, you have not given them pre-knowledge about it, especially notice papers. So I don't know concerning the parliament, but what I know is this. You see, this digitalization, I believe that if they want it, it is achievable. Very, very achievable. They will make sure that they provide the funds for it and start from somewhere without excuses, because excuse will always exclude Africa from the top. So I believe that, you know, this is when the civil society people come, you know, this citizenship education, and let them know from time to time, and the use of the press too, to bombard them on why these things are happening. Why can't it be changed? There must be this, you know, advocacy concerning, you know, every time we use paper. One, it's not cost effective. Two, it's inconveniencing. Three, is, you know, it makes most parliamentarians not knowing what is happening in the chamber. And another thing I also want to say concerning this resilience of something, you know, our parliament being able to absorb shocks. You see, I don't know, in the act, Health Act particularly. If we don't have robots, at least we can amend our Health Act. Our Health Act in such a way that should there be any pandemic of any sort, our medical personnel will not die like fowl. Even if they die, they have adequate compensation spelled out in the act, so that you know that when you are dying, because it's your profession, and you know you are going into, areas that can take your life, that the act establishing the Health Act has made a lot of provision for what comes to your family in such a situation. It will be properly spelled out, because you discover that those areas are not captured in the Health Act, and amendments and those areas should be looked into, and make sure that the people that are also helping the parliament, are also taken care of when such incidents happen. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Madam Clerk, for that deep and passionate insight.
Thank you so much. I think our major challenge, both in Nigeria and then some of the African countries, is reluctance to accept change. And like an issue he raised that we need to converse on and find a way of ensuring that it's eventually implemented, is one that has to do with our rules. I think we should work towards convincing our various leaders in various houses of assembly. And then, of course, like she also mentioned, through the civil society advocacy, make a very strong case. Because the way we are going, in fact, when you find yourself in some of these international fora, it looks so funny. It looks so funny that sometimes they'll be looking at you as if you are coming from a different continent entirely. You're looking at what is really happening. There were instances where things were being presented digitally, and then, unfortunately, I will not mention that particular place now. One of our colleagues came out then, and then what he did, quickly asked for something that is to be brought to him. Not beaming the whole thing on the virtual presentation that even if you are within the place or not, you'll be able to access. So these are some of the shortcomings. Now, if we insist and then we make it a rule, and we're able to convince the leadership, and they begin to implement same, we'll be left with no option than to follow. Even those who are reluctant, they eventually tail along. So I think we have a part to play there. But we should strive towards convincing the leadership of our various parliaments, and then using the civil society organizations to embark on serious advocacy in this regard. I think that is another way out. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Kenya.
Thank you very much. My name is Innocent Mbaya from Kenya. Just like the other presenters or colleagues who made comments, the Parliament of Kenya has also migrated to the e-platform. So we run our chamber operations on an e-platform. So we upload all our documents on the iPads in the chamber. We also upload reports and the order paper and anything else that is to be considered in the chamber on the platforms. But what we've seen, there are two categories of members. We have the younger members who are tech savvy, so they've adapted very well to EPAL. But when it comes to the elderly members of parliament, some of them will come with excuses that their eyesight is not okay, they're not able to read gadgets, to read documents on gadgets. Some want to annotate on actual physical documents. So we are facing that challenge in terms of being fully compliant with EPAL. And as our sister from Botswana said, you'd find that the presiding officer understands the needs of these members who don't want to adapt to the EPAL. And he would say, please, clerks, avail physical copies of the documents in the chamber. Once you do that for one member, everybody else would want to get physical copies. So that's a challenge that we are experiencing, and I've seen it's not unique to Kenya only. Now, we've also linked our library resources through an online platform, to the extent that when a member wants to do research, or staff want to do a research on anything, they're able to access the resources in the library digitally. So they don't need to walk physically to the library to get a report of a parliamentary inquiry many years back. All those documents are available through an online platform that is run by our library, which we have found very resourceful. Because initially, as clerks, we would be running to the library to get documents. You come with a document, then the member tells you, not this one, I want the other one. And it will be just chaotic. Now, on the matter of the chamber being digital, we've realized that we are running many technologies. For instance, we do vote electronically using a digital, multimedia digital congress system in the chamber. And our iPads are also containing documents for members. And our parliamentary broadcast is also on the e-platform. But you'll find all these platforms are not linked by any software or application. They are all separate. So it makes managing these platforms very expensive for Parliament, because probably you're getting a license for one, license for the other, and it becomes quite expensive. So probably if parliaments can move to an integrated system where everything else is run on that one platform, probably it will be more cost efficient for our parliaments. We also have phone prompts. We have a shortcode where if there's any message that we need to communicate to our members, it is done through that shortcode. Let's say there's a special sitting or something and they're on recess. They're able to get that message immediately. It is dispatched from our ICT people. They get it on their phones. Tiampati and his team are the ones who are managing that particular system. The other challenge that we are facing is proprietorship rights for the online platforms that we're using. They are not developed by our people. They are developed by outsiders. We had a case where one day as we were preparing for chamber and we've uploaded our documents, the system goes off. And we are told that the proprietor in Germany has a dispute with our parliament, so the dispute has to be resolved. But members have been used to having their documents on the online platform. So if we can stop dependence on externally sourced platforms and develop our own, then we'll be having much control. That goes all the way to the servers, because most of them are not in our hands. They are being provided by foreigners. Then there's the issue of the backroom and the front office. While we have adopted an e-parliament mode of doing business, you'll find the backroom operations are largely paper-based. So that's the next frontier that we need to look at. How can we as parliaments embrace e-parliament from A to Z, as opposed to just the chamber? I think those are the comments I have to make. Oh, there's one other issue of the documents that we are sharing in the meetings we are having on this platform. For instance, in our parliament, we are able to have, we amended our standing orders, so we have virtual sittings and hybrid sittings. So we can have members who are outside parliament joining in for plenary to contribute to debate and even to vote. And in committees, they are able to hold the meetings entirely virtually. But as I have said, these are not tools that are ours. They are not owned
the voting conference system where you vote and then we have an iPad platform for document management. And then there's that virtual, what he has just mentioned. So that just wanted to put it in the context. My suggestion to colleagues is that in the chambers, let us develop or let us have members who are champions of the IT system. You know, those who show the others that this is how you go about it. Because one of the things I ask members in the chamber is if you can read your phone, if you can read your phone from morning to evening, then why can't you read this? They just look for excuses. So normally my question is, if you can read a text, if you can read my bulk text, the way we send to inform you about business, then why can't you read this? However, there's always political mistrust. For example, the voting system we have is perfect. It takes around 5 minutes, you have the results, even though we have numbers. However, because of the political mistrust among us politicians, they say, no, we want to do voting physical. We want to line up in the chamber. They come in front of the clerk and say, I vote yes, I vote no. They are also playing to the gallery. You know, this is politics. So that is a problem with the systems, voting systems in our case. So let's look for champions. Let's take the leadership on board. And let's have the leadership leading the process. Once in a while, in our cases, we ask the speaker to give direction. Direction is to insist on members going to the platforms, get the order paper on the platform. So those are the things. And then the other thing we have done is to make the system accessible. You don't need to get a password. You don't need to have, you know, an access, something access to make it easy for them. So once you come to the chamber, you log into your system, you access the system. You don't need to have a password. So I just wanted to share those few things about the system. Then there's what you call a bulk text. Parliament has partnered with the service provider, Safaricom. This is the biggest mobile telephone provider in the country. So we have a bulk text where we send to members every day. Every time we produce another paper, I send it to everybody. So all members get 349 get in 1 second. To just tell them that we have business tomorrow of this nature. And if there's a business related to a member, the name of the member will also be in that text. So we also have that mobile texting process. Thank you, Chair. Just wanted to share with our case. Even though we want to learn from Namibia, the tracking system for us for business is not yet web-based. It's still a word-based tracking system. So we may learn from you. Thank you.
We can launch it together in March.
Thank you. Let's conclude with the Sierra Leone so that we are able to have a health break in time.
Thank you very much, the Clerk of Namibia. This is a very important topic because we have to live with it as Parliament. My question is, what can we go paperless on as Parliament? Because I think this topic has to be taken very seriously moving forward. In fact, I want to recommend that next year, 2024, let's still have an aspect of this question because we have to actually think as parliaments in the region, what do we want to go paperless on? Say, for example, chamber operations, maybe yes. Plenary proceedings, maybe yes. But what about committee activities? If we want to go paperless and committee activities, it has to be an e-governance infrastructure for all the three arms of government. Parliament can't do it alone. Say, for example, in our case, if a parliamentary committee goes paperless and the MDA, the ministry does, in fact, the permanent secretary and the others don't care about, they don't even have email addresses. How do you perform effective You know, how do you perform effective oversight? And the bureaucracy in the civil service, all of us know.
The e-parliament strategy, and we made them to take undertakings. They signed the document. It is driven by the secretaries, the clerks, but they are also on the forefront. They are in fact the champions that you are referring to. It is just the need for participation still to be kept that we fall back. In terms of funding, this needs some serious infrastructure development. But as we're developing the strategy, we engaged civil society organizations, we engaged donor partners and so on. So UNICEF is one of the donor partners that we have already worked with. We are running a children's parliament as well, so we brought that element in. And in terms of funding some infrastructure developments, they are on board. Also, the European Union, we have dealt with them, and there is another program that we are running on enhancing participatory democracy in Namibia. Now, on the basis of that program, we brought them in because we are enhancing democracy even through this. So they are developing partners. The relationship is going on, despite the fact that the Namibian Parliament has passed its very first private members bill in June, and it dealt with same-sex marriages. And the same-sex marriages in that bill which was passed is not allowed in Namibia. It was passed by the two houses. It went to the president for assent, and since June so far the president has been silent. There may be some machinations going on behind the doors, but our relationship with the donors remains intact. The apps that I have been referring to, we are in fact developing again together with development partners like the Konrad Adenauer Stiftung, a German-based outfit. Session Chair, those are my concluding remarks.
Thank you very much. A hand clap for him. So we are breaking off for breakfast, and this should take us 40 minutes.
Thank you, colleagues. So I've been reminded, and thank you to the presenters and to those who've made input. I've been reminded that tea is ready at the back. We are running a bit behind in terms of time. It is 20 to 12. We still have 2 sessions left. We are going to restart at 12 o'clock, people. Okay? So we have 20 minutes. I'm asking that we don't. I've seen that we drag our feet a bit around the table there where the refreshments are. If we can just take what we need to take, come back to our seats, have our coffee, have our refreshments so that we can start at 12 o'clock, please. The session is adjourned until 12 o'clock. Thank you.